We'll start now. So Karina, thanks so much for doing this. And like I told you earlier, I'm really excited for how this is lining up with the current humanities curriculum. I think it'd be great for them to tell you a little bit about what they're doing as it's topical. And we have about an hour for this until 1 o'clock. And we're gonna have to continue advising. But why don't you just, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, and then anything you want to share about your current work or what's led to this point. And then awesome.
Yeah. Nice to see everyone, kind of. So I'm from LA. Specifically, I'm from Central or South LA, as it's now being talked about. And I went to a very sort of traditional route for like middle school and high school. For high school, I went to a charter school, a small charter school that at the time was like about 100 people. And when I got to like my senior year of high school, I hadn't taken any art classes or anything. But throughout this time, I was like kind of making like doodles and like making weird, now I think is like weird work, but kind of like angsty work, teenage work that we all do. That I think has like really sort of like influenced a lot of the things that like a lot of us are doing now. But anyways, so I didn't take an art class until I think my junior year of high school. And in my senior year, I took an AP art history course. And I think that also kind of, I'll talk about it a little bit later, but that influenced a lot of the things that I was thinking about once I got to college. When I started applying to schools, I was the only kid in my whole school that like was interested in art and like kind of seriously pursuing it. So when I sort of brought this idea up to college counselors and like my teachers, they were like sort of confused and like freaking out because they hadn't ever helped a student apply to any schools that were specifically geared towards the arts. So I feel like for that, I had to kind of do a lot of research on my own. And I kind of just applied everywhere that I thought sounded cool without doing, I think in retrospect, in like enough research in terms of like, you know, what kind of schools were like the right fit for me, and like maybe what kind of programs I should be like thinking about. But yeah, so then I ended up at CalArts, and there I like very quickly, I think the summer that I met Megan, the program was like, it was very intimate, sort of similar to how like Oxbow is, where you have like a couple of faculty members who, I think that question. What drew me to CalArts specifically? Mostly the financial aid package. But once I got accepted, I met Glenna Avila, who came to my high school because she knew the principal, and she like talked to me about the program, and she was like, you can come teach like for us. But like I was like 17 or 18, so I really wasn't thinking about like teaching or anything at that point. But yeah, I think, I mean, in retrospect, it was like a good fit, I think. Even though at times I felt like it wasn't a good fit, but like it really informed a lot of things later on. Yeah, definitely go to the school that gives you the most money. Also, because I think it shows that they're like interested in you, you know. I forgot where it was. Yeah, so once at CalArts, I started working for the CAP program, and I worked, like I taught a few classes with Megan. And there I think I really developed like an interest, not just in creating work, but also specifically in like, I think I got like most of my joy from like sharing the knowledge and like love of art that I have with others. And as I sort of continue like my trajectory through CalArts, I found like less and less that I was interested for sure, like in like my studio practice, but I was like more interested in like different ways of like how I can share like the information that I knew with others and kind of make it fun and make it engaging and make it relevant for folks. So then I once I was in like my fourth year, I started thinking about like, okay, maybe I do want to teach. Like, what would that look like? Um, so I kind of abruptly applied to grad schools, and I didn't kind of listen to the advice that I should have. I think I applied to like SVA and SMFA and RISD, and SVA and SMFA in Boston. They gave me good packages, like good aid packages, but they were like MFA programs. And again, I was like, I still make work, and I'm like very interested in continuing to make work, but it seemed like a studio practice, like where, you know, like typically what I, at least what at the time I thought was like, you know, you come to your studio, you're kind of like by yourself and you're making work and you're kind of working out these problems. Um, but I really wasn't thinking about like, I don't know. I was like, it was like a very confusing time. So I ended up going to RISD for an art education master's, which was interesting. Hey, there's a question. Do you think of your teaching as part of your art practice? Now I do, for sure. But I think at the time, for whatever reason, I was like, no, you have to have like a studio practice and then you teach. Or like, I don't know. For whatever reason, like it was like a weird, it wasn't as fluid, I think. But I think that was because like a lot of the language that I didn't have yet, you know, like this like term like teaching artists wasn't sort of in my vocabulary. It was sort of like at the end. But when I got to RISD, I realized that what I really did enjoy like the most was like just sitting around and making work with other people, or like, you know, if they have an idea, sort of like helping them sort of execute it, and, you know, whatever they sort of feel like is like the best for them. Like those kinds of moments were more exciting for me than like me kind of going back to the studio and then making work by myself. It's still gratifying, but I think that like, I don't know, I think there's like it's like a different moment, I think, when you're with a group of people and like they all kind of have like the aha moment, where, you know, whatever they kind of been struggling through or working like working through, and then they kind of overcome that. I think that's like way more exciting. I just, at least for me personally. Yeah. So at RISD, I did this art education program, but I still felt like, I don't know, things had like, were still kind of like wishy-washy for me. So I came back to LA, and I started applying to jobs because, like, you know, you have to make money. And it became really difficult because all of the jobs that I thought I wanted to get, I wasn't getting. And I ended up at this school at this teaching position, where it was an elementary school. And again, I thought, I was like, no, this is not for me, because up until then I was like only working with high school age students or middle school students. And I was like, elementary, like it's going to be a very different, like, I don't know, like I wasn't feeling it, but I gave it a try and I really, really loved it. And I found like working with little ones is like very more exciting for me, and like they're just like weird, and, you know, like it was interesting for me to sort of translate like art history into something that made sense for like 6 and 8-year-olds. Because it's like easier, I think, to do that for like at a high school level sometimes. And yeah, so I really fell in love, but they weren't paying that much. So it like realistically also I had to think about like, okay, what's going to make sense for me financially to be able to like sustain myself as an artist, and like in LA especially. So I got a position in La Jolla to that paid better. And there I learned a lot. That was, for me, like, because I feel like up until then I kept doing things like abruptly. Like if I got something, I was like, I'm just gonna do it, because like, why not? but then I was like really miserable at that position. Like I was teaching art and it was really cool and the kids were great. But there were a lot of other like logistical things that I was noticing that like I wasn't really agreeing with. So then I went back to LA and then I was like, okay, I need to figure out what to do. So I ended up in another position and yeah, that's right, Miss Cindy. The art program at that school is really great, but like the logistical things I'll get to in a little bit, but I feel like they're kind of a mess. Um, but when I came back, I ended up in another school that was a little bit bigger. It was an elementary school as well, and I worked with like the elementary age students and the middle schoolers. And there, I realized that like the need for our education was like very drastic and like very dire. And I had like middle school students who I like didn't know come and like drop in and have like open studio type like after school classes. um and like through conversation and again like me like just kind of sitting in a room with them, a lot of these questions that they would ask and a lot of things that they were interested in, I wanted to sort of like expose them to, but I wasn't sure how. um so I really started thinking about it like, okay, like, you know, I kind of went from high school to and ended up here like you know in like the span of like 6 or 7 years. But I really wasn't like pausing and thinking about like what I want to do next or like how does this all kind of make sense. So I started doing these like impromptu field trips with kids, and they were very informal, where I would just take like a group of 10 or 15 students and we would like walk to um, the where the school is, like it's like a mile away from Landmark Park. So we would walk to this gallery that opened up there, which is Art and Practice. And luckily like I knew someone who worked there, so it was like easy sort of to be like, hey, I want to bring a group of kids, like let's kind of give this a try. So that was really successful. And then I started reaching out to other places like, hey, like can we bring this group of kids in um, to do this field trip. And like now that sort of spiraled into like this program, now that it's like a program that exists, it's kind of wild to say. um but we're doing, so now what we do is like summer programming, where we do visits to different art and cultural centers throughout the city. And then I also do workshops, and then I've been collaborating with a lot of local organizations, who are interested in bringing like the arts to the community. um, Says, could you talk a little bit about building and maintaining an artistic community? Yeah. um there's, I think, I don't know, artists, I'm realizing it's funny because it's like for us who are like artists and like for y'all who are like in this program, we already have like this sort of inkling, like, you know, like we whatever we create, we want to share it with the world, right? And like it comes, I feel like it comes maybe more natural to us, but I feel like to the outside public, like art is kind of scary. um Depending on like their own perceptions, you know, like people would be like, oh, I used to draw when I was a kid, or I used to do this a long time ago, but like I don't know how to re-enter into this sort of world. um but I'm finding now that like if you set up certain parameters for folks, and a simple one that I've found like really works is like through mural painting. um I've been doing it, I think, like 3 or 4 times now, where we do like a sort of paint by numbers, and everybody can kind of contribute to this mural. Even if it's just like, you know, they paint a small section of it, they feel like they're part of this like larger thing that's bigger than themselves, which is like really exciting. And then once the piece is completed, like there's a sense of ownership, um, that, you know, they contributed to creating this like larger piece that now exists in the community, that was like collaborative. And it's like exciting when people like then go on and talk about like, oh yeah, like I painted this part of this mural, or I contributed to this part, and like they talk about what happened that day, or they talk about like how that sort of inspired them to do something else when they got back home. um you know, like they started drawing again, or they started like, you know, um creating their like little weird sculptures that they think are weird, but they're like the little sculptures that they like used to do when they were kids or whatever. So like it's like really exciting in that way. Um, yeah. Let me see. I feel like I kind of went on a tangent, but it says, on the topic of murals, can you talk about how the art slash urban landscape in South Central, South LA influences your lessons? Yeah, the history of South LA is very interesting because I feel like it's used to be paired with like a lot of um like the conversations around it were very different, like back in the 90s and like early 2000s. And now I think that at least in the last like 4 or 5 years, because of the like a lot of the anniversaries of things were coming up, like the anniversary of like the LA riots and like the anniversary of like all these other things that happened in the 90s or in the 60s were coming up. A lot of people wanted to have like this like agency over it, or like they want to have like control of this narrative. And it's like interesting because we're like in a weird flux right now where like the community is changing very drastically, not just demographically, but also like socioeconomically. So a lot of these things do come into play, like in terms of like the landscape and like the kind of buildings that are popping up or the kind of buildings that are being destroyed, that no longer exist, that sort of just become memories. And yeah, it's like it's like exciting but also very scary because there's like an erasure of culture at the same time. But like, you know, we all want our neighborhoods to look nice, and we all want like our communities to thrive, and we all want, like, you know, kids to go play at a park and we all want these like nice things. But then like there's like all these other things that are happening like sort of in the like at the macro level. um It's Jason wrote, that's an amazing opportunity to check out the gallery spaces slash public art projects as part of your class. How'd you go about finding the different venues you visit with your students? Do they interact with the students, or are you creating the context for each visit? Yeah, that's a good question. It started off as just like going to the places that I knew. Maybe like, you know, like the museums that we were like that I was familiar with, or galleries that I was familiar with. Now I'm sort of reaching out to folks, or like people reach out to me. But what I started doing is I'll go meet with them first because I'm trying to see. I think because I'm like also working with like a very specific demographic. Um, I get very like protective, and I found that a lot of folks just kind of want us to come for like a 1 day visit for like a photo op, so they can sort of check off this like equity and inclusion. um you know, like we invite like black and brown kids to our gallery or our space, and like here are these like photos of these cute kids. So what I started doing is like meeting with folks prior to that, and like really thinking about what their intentions are as well, and like um if their mission is sort of aligned with like what my mission is for the organization as well. I don't know if that made sense. But we like, yeah, and then we've also kind of gone to places that I had like no idea existed up until like a couple weeks ago. Like last summer we went to this place called the Moonwater Farm in Compton, and like it wasn't art related specifically, but like I was really interested in to see how like we can kind of bridge this connection between like outdoor art experiences and like the kids own art experiences. And it was really cool because they got to like milk a goat and like hold chickens, and things like that, because you know, like in the city it's like really rare for like us to ever see a goat. um yeah, so that was like really cool, I think. Yeah, it was really fun. It was a fun day. I feel like We often talk about really special moments you run into your students afterwards, or when you, I'm sorry, or when they get in touch with you about our conversations they've had in their families or friends. Could you talk about how you see it influence greetings extending beyond the field trips? Yeah, I guess I should talk about maybe why I started greetings from South LA. We don't have a lot of art. Okay, so the way that LA is sort of set up, there's a lot of things that are happening sort of like on the west side and like on the east side. And then anything that's south or like southeast, um, there are for sure a lot of art organizations and a lot of things that exist. But if you look at a map, um, there's like a big kind of gap, like a big sort of empty space that exists, and that's kind of where South Central is, and sort of like the southeast part of LA is. Um, so a lot of the institutions that do exist, which are like amazing, I think, in their own way, like the Getty or LACMA, or even like smaller galleries like ICALA or like Hauser and Wirth. Like that's kind of cool that it's in LA. Um, and they're like fantastic in their own right, but they're so far. And I think to get to things in LA, like it's very rare for one to kind of go out of their own neighborhood, as it is. And then like especially if you haven't been there before, it's like you're less likely to go to a place. But once like if I kind of drag a group of kids and then they go to the road with me, and then they have like a really fantastic time, and then they go back home and then they tell their parents like, hey, like, you know, like let's go back to this museum because I want to show you around. Like all those things happen, and it's like really exciting because then they kind of, even if they don't go on another field trip with me again, they already have that inkling to kind of want to check out other spaces. um and or like they'll take their family to the road and they'll drag their parents. And I'm thinking of a family in particular who like the parent texted me. They were like, oh, like thanks to you, you know, like we went to the Brovo, we had like a fantastic time, and I'm going back now with my friends because they had like an adult only event. So like it was kind of cool that they're like 8-year-olds sort of started this like trend, and now the parents are going. um or like Dad and Lauren's opening when the kids said that they knew. Oh yeah. Lauren Halsey is like an amazing friend who I met at CalArts as well, and she sort of blew up, and she's like fantastic. But I like when I was at View Park, I talked about her work, and we didn't do a project around her work in particular, but I talked about her work a lot because a lot of her work does talk about like the urban landscape of South LA, and like the history of our community. And yeah, so I talked about it with like first and second graders, and like all up into like students in the 5th and 6th grade. And then at her opening a couple weeks ago, at David Kurgansky Gallery, I ran into one of my students, and after the show, and she and her father were waiting for the bus. And I guess this whole time she was like telling her dad that she knew about Lauren's work, and she was like, talking to him about it, and he was like, yeah, whatever. And then I ran into the student, and she was like, see, Dad, like my art teacher's here, like I told you I knew about the work. And it was like an exciting moment because then the dad was like, oh, okay, like, my daughter knows what she's talking about, which is kind of cute when they correct the parents. um yeah, I don't know if you guys have any questions. I feel like I've been talking, kind of rambling. How's it been to shift from shift from planning public gatherings to quarantine gatherings for greetings. And what I've been doing during quarantine. Yeah, I think this quarantine thing is like a mess, obviously. Um, I'm like trying to remain hopeful that it's like we're gonna hopefully get past it soon. Um, what I've been doing is we're gonna transition to like virtual field trips that we could do. But I think the key thing too is that I have to really think about access a lot and like what kinds of technology like students have at home and like I think other school districts might be a little bit different, but I think LAUSD, for example, like realized a couple weeks ago that like their students, not all of them had access to like internet, and like the internet companies sort of like hooked them up with access to that. But then like once they have laptops, there was a lot of these other things that they weren't thinking about, how um like if your parents don't speak any English, you can't really get a lot of help from the school because they weren't really translating things. And then once they did translate things, like you know I don't know, it's like so complicated thinking about how like everyone's home situation is like very different. And I feel like a lot of us are very privileged to have the 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 space now, because I feel like we all kind of have the time now, depending on what that looks like for you. But the space to kind of sit down and do work, and the space to kind of sit down and like take 10 minutes of your day to do something that's for fun, um, whether that be like like your own artistic practice, or like um to do like a virtual gallery tour. I think it's like a lot of, I don't know, I feel like we have to think about how we spend our time and like our energy, if that makes sense. um because I think, I don't know, to me it seems like we're asking a lot from students to be like, all right, you're gonna have to kind of do what you were doing before, like normal, when that's really like not the case of what's going on. And like everyone's home situation is like very unique. um so I've been doing, we for Greetings From, we've been doing online tutorials, um but a lot of it, like the resources start for me like trying to connect like folks with other art institutions. So there's like an ongoing list of art resources that like other people are doing, because a lot of organizations have really been doing like a really great job. Like the Getty's really like being kind of hip right now, where they're asking folks to like recreate artworks in their home, and I think like that's such a genius idea. um and other museums have started doing that, or like craft contemporary started doing like these like DIY like tutorials for folks to use like everyday materials at home, or like cheap materials at home, and things like that. So a lot of like my work right now has been like, okay guys, like these are the other organizations that exist that we can kind of connect you with, that you should like check out, if that makes sense. um what are some seminal texts that have shaped your arts education and current work? Do you have any recommendations? Yeah, bell hooks. Anything by bell hooks. The Teaching Community, that's a really great book that I recommend for anyone. And there's another book, I think it's called um, The Teaching Artist Handbook, is really good. And then there's this book that I picked up, I think with Megan a long time ago. I like keep it next to me. How to Be an Explorer of the World. It's a portable life museum by Carrie Smith. And it's like a really, I kind of keep it around all the time because it's like really handy, and you can do um it's like very inspirational because you can just kind of walk out your door and you don't have to like go very far to find inspiration to create. um or you can just go to your kitchen and find inspiration. So that's like, those are two really great books I think that come in mind. What else? Children's art books also I really recommend. I started collecting them a couple years ago, and they're really insightful, I think, as well. What prompted you to go to the Claremont program? Can you tell us more about what program looks like? Yeah. Oh yeah, I have the Bell Hooks kids book too. That's a really good book. Also tell us about your own children's book in the works. Oh yeah, I've been. um, so we're now doing another master's, and it's in art administration, at Claremont Graduate University. It's it's a really good program. I really recommend it. Um, and it's sort of consumed my life at the moment. But what's really exciting is that they're really helping me sort of think about, um, like being really intentional with a lot of the things that I'm doing with my program, and also like thinking about being really intentional with like the language that I'm using, um, or like what kind of programming I'm sort of developing. Because I think, like, I don't know, the quarantine thing is like interesting, because I think that there seems to be a lot of pressure for everyone to sort of create, and like, I saw like a meme on Instagram that was like, if you don't come out with like a new idea, or if you don't come out with like a new whatever out of this quarantine, like you wasted your time. And I'm like, that's such a, like, not the right way to go about thinking about this. And like, I don't know, like it's like very capitalistic too. um and um like I noticed that a lot of institutions like were like, okay, cool, we're gonna put everything online now, have fun. But then like when I navigate their website, it's like super confusing. Or like when I like try to do a tutorial, for example, like I'm not going to say who, but I tried to do one of them and it didn't make any sense. And I was like, just because you put like your entire collection onto an online platform now, it doesn't mean that it's translating the same way. So I feel like the program is like really helping me sort of be more intentional about those kind of things, and be more thoughtful, and as opposed to just like immediately reactive, if that makes sense. um yeah, but I think it's like also exciting because it's like you're I'm combining like my love and like my knowledge of art with like a kind of more administrative and like business like kind of mindset. um and it's like also designed for like folks who are like thinking about being an entrepreneur, and like thinking about like an idea that they want to have and they want to see it out in the world, which is like really exciting because there's a lot of folks who like have small galleries, that I'm taking classes with and are doing the same program as me. And um it's like exciting to see how they're also, we're like reading the same information, but they're like completely translating it in a different way, and they're putting it out into the world in a very different way, which is like really exciting, I think, because we need more like innovative ideas out there, you know. Yeah, and Megan says, also tell us about your own children's book in the works. I've been working on this children's book for like 3 years now. It's about, essentially the story. It's called It's a Rough Life. Essentially the story is about my dog Dali, who is a cocker spaniel, and it's like about her life trajectory, like her going blind and having this disability of like not not being able to see, but also like watching her make friends. And she she's like very off-putting and like will immediately attack. And we did like a lot of doggy training and got kicked out of doggy school and things like that. So it was like interesting to see her go through all that. And now that she's like older, she's like calmed down, but she's like also learned to make friends. So I have these like watercolor illustrations that like are detailing her life, and I'm happy to share those if you guys want to see them. um I think that your studio-based practice work is also very related to more of your public-facing work. Is, if possible, could we see via the share screen some of your work, either thesis, illustrations, etc. Yeah. How do I pull that up? I don't know how to do that.
Share screen or your work? What do you mean? At the bottom of your screen, there's the green rectangle, and it says share screen underneath it.
Oh, okay. Okay, let me pull up like a tab then.
Yeah, get your screen situated first.
You guys can see all the homework I've been doing. It's crazy. Yeah, but I'm curious about this like humanities class that you guys are taking. Can I take it? Just kidding. And then how are we going time? Oh, okay. We have like a couple minutes. Okay. I can show like my unactivated artist page. Is that okay?
Ooh, yes.
I unactivated for a while because I was like, it needs to be revamped significantly.
I feel like you've put a lot of effort into the greetings website recently, which is really nice.
Yeah, I think I don't know if like other people have this problem, but I like have a lot of interests, and you can't like half do something, you know. I think like prioritizing like what can realistically be done in right now, as opposed to like a lot of little projects that maybe don't make a lot of sense. I don't know. That's just how it was for me. Okay. I don't know what's happening.
It's okay.
I'm sorry. It's like not.
Megan, do you want to share work and she can talk about it if you have the screen share set up on yours?
I don't know if I have Karina's images. It's the only
Okay.
thing. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
But that is a good idea. Maybe for a future talk for sure. Maybe you just talk about it, Karina.
Yeah, it just tells me.
And with that, and then also
Yeah, like
on the note of building websites, or like deciding the feel or the look of it or how you want people to react to the work you're presenting. It's maybe a little bit more of a abstract conversation, but if you've got any ideas for like publicly presenting work or projects, I think that would be good for the speaker.
Yeah, I think I've been thinking about that a lot. That's why I took it down. I think that once you like, if you want to share your work with the public, thinking about what like emotions you kind of want them to have when they're looking at the work, and like the way that you represent yourself online is like super important. Even onto like your Instagram page or like your TikTok page, especially your TikTok page, because I've been trying to figure out TikTok right now. And I have this like the art of digital marketing book that I've been reading, that like one, people look at it, right, for sure, and then even if they don't follow you, they're going to look at your page, and then or they're going to share the stuff, and then thinking about the colors that you want to use, and like what like the different colors evoke. Thinking about things like that is like really important for like a website. But to like think about it, and like Wix is free, I think. And that's why even like right now too, because everything's sort of online, like putting yourself out there and like your work out there and that sort of platform kind of, I think it levels you up to like a different, like more sophisticated level. Or even if it's like I don't know, do people still use Tumblr? Is that a thing?
I don't think so.
Oh, Tumblr was really cool for that. I don't know. Yeah, but I don't know. I can show the greetings from page because that's kind of, yeah.
That'd be cool. I also was wondering specifically if the work that you were creating around the end of CalArts, how you see that relating to the work that you were doing with teaching in those communities. But maybe we can look at this and then we can end with that. We have about 10 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. My work at CalArts. Yeah, at CalArts I was doing. I feel like maybe because of Megan. I don't know. I was like really interested in maps for a while. But I think in like a very different way. Because I started looking at like urban planning and things like that I didn't necessarily think were like very can you guys see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. I was like looking at urban planning a different way in terms of like and like the way that I don't know, the way that things are sort of laid out for us and the way that we maneuver the world is like already kind of set up from day one, you know? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah, so I developed this also because like the greeting strum is like designed to be a resource. So I noticed that a lot of folks weren't like, if you're not really into like the art scene, I guess, you don't really know where things are. So this is sort of like what I was talking about earlier, how there's like a gap right here of things that don't exist. And it's also the same for food in the grocery stores and the same for any other essential thing that you can think of. Like we don't have it. So it's like, you know, and like I haven't put all the West Side stuff or like the downtown stuff because I wanted to think about like what was easily sort of accessible within our immediate community. But if you go to like any of these, you have like a direct link and like information regarding like what art organization is there, and sort of like what they do and what their hours are and things like that. Yeah, but I think like when I was before I graduated from college, I was thinking a lot about like this sort of idea of mapping and documenting a lot of places that existed and I guess now no longer exist. But also thinking about you know what spaces we can kind of reclaim, if that makes sense. And a lot of stories and forgotten memories and yeah. So this is like our field trips page. And then here we have like the last set of field trips that we had were in the winter. Our spring break ones were canceled. Yeah.
Karina, is it just you and the students going on these trips?
Sometimes we have folks that tag along, like people who want to volunteer, which is really great. Yeah, but so far it's like need to be another adult. And then the students. And then here we have like sort of the projects that I'm been continuously adding of like projects people can do at home. And then I have like this toolkit for educators, parents, and for students. And And again, thinking about like the access to different programming. So I have like links to like different organizations that exist in the area, not specifically in South LA necessarily, but just programs that I am aware of, or that I think are like really great and doing really cool things that people can sort of like apply to. And you guys are over here.
There's Oxbow.
But yeah, because you know, things like Oxbow I think are like really fantastic. But like, oh, I don't know what I did. But like I didn't know they existed, you know. But that's like I feel like I don't know. A lot of it also is like that speaks to like access, right? And like the information that my college counselors had or my teachers had, because they didn't know about Oxford, or they didn't know about Raymond Arts, or they didn't know about these other programs that existed. That like I'm trying to fix that now. If that makes sense. Yeah. I don't know.
So you've just got Jason volunteering to go on a field trip with you when he's in
I accepted yesterday that we won't have any summer things. It was kind of sad. But I have a meeting on Thursday. I don't know. I'm gonna see how they're doing it too. Trying to figure out this like online virtual tour situation. But I don't know. I'm like a little skeptical about them right now, but that might change.
Might have to, right?
Yeah.
All right, OS42, we have maybe 5 minutes left, so now's the time if you've got any last minute questions about either Karina's artwork or artists.
There's a question from Billy. How do you help other artist students with their ideas? What do you do when they feel lost? That's a good question. All ideas come from somewhere. Whether we know, I think a lot of art making too is just like talking and working, like verbally working through problems. So when like a student has an idea, because I also don't want them to kind of ask for my opinion and then like, you know, whatever I say that might indirectly, even if I'm not like intending for it to be that way, like shift their project into something else, you know, that I might, for example, be more interested in. So I feel like you have to be kind of careful with questions you're asking students or anyone in general. But a lot of it is just like, okay, like tell me about the project. You know, like maybe why are you using these specific materials, or why are you using these specific colors, or things like that. And I feel like then people start really talking about like, oh, you know, like, oh, I had this idea when I saw this, whatever, like, you know, here in this place, and then they sort of start talking that way. What do you do when you feel lost? I read a lot when I feel lost. That, and also I put everything down, and if you can just like remove yourself from it physically. I know that might be a little hard right now, but even if you just go outside and like take a breather, you know, maybe do something else that's sort of mundane, like wash dishes, or if you, I don't know. I've been trying to do this thing where whenever I feel like I'm stuck, I'll like go clean something, like maybe put some clothes away, something that's just completely not anything, but just go put, you know, go do this thing, go let the dog go do, you know, and then come back to it. Little moments to really help your brain. And then my partner was telling me about this like study where you work for, I think it's like 40 something minutes, like 47 minutes, and then you take an 18-minute break or something like that. So I've been trying to figure that out, because then your brain just sort of needs, whenever you feel lost, like your brain sort of needs like a pause, like watch a show you like, or like watch comedy or something like that, and then come back to it. Because even if it doesn't click in that moment when you're back to the project, whatever that is, yeah. Cool.
Okay.
Is there a way for students to contact you individually if they like to talk more? Yeah, you guys can email me if you want. Megan can give you my email.
Yeah.
And yeah. Sorry,
What
the website thing wasn't working. I don't know.
That's cool. Can you remind me what the Instagram handle is for greetings? Maybe just type it in the chat.
Yeah, it's at Greetings from South L.A. I've also been starting this is not like a artist to follow thing on my stories, because I've been just like trying to get really inspired by like the work that other artists are doing, and just like reposting their stuff for other folks to kind of look at. Yeah, so there's like a little, I don't know, I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, I really like what you've been doing with that Instagram lately in terms of like sharing projects for people to do or sharing resources, connecting them with other people in the area that can help them to be good for
Yeah.
like
People should talk to other people. What an idea. Ask questions, you guys. Like, I mean, not to me right now, but like, like just in general, like I think also a lot of the connections that I've developed are through Instagram, like happen through Instagram. Even jobs that I've gotten, like teaching gigs or workshops have been through Instagram. And it's just like they send me something or I send them something. It's just like starting a like I really like your work. Like, let's see if we can chat whenever you have like 5 minutes, you know? Like people are really open to that idea, I think.
Well, I think that we need to wrap up for today, but thank you so much for hopping on with us.
Thank you, Karina.
Yeah, it's good seeing you guys virtually.
Yeah, hope you're doing okay. And we'll post this to YouTube soonish, and we can send you a link so you can see it too.
Cool. Bye.
Alrighty, have a good day. Thank you so much.
Megan.